Hello and welcome to the Urban Wellness Advocacy podcast, where we aim to just have conversations and build constructive dialogue with people in the community who have awareness, who have experience, and want to get together and just be creative and come up with solutions for challenges that we've observed are being experienced widespread amongst the community. So today, I'm the host, Dr. Ben Glass. Today I have the pleasure of being in conversation with Dr. Marcus Adeshima Penn. And Dr. Marcus, can you get us started by maybe just introducing yourself and also giving your perspective on what urban wellness advocacy means when you hear it said out loud?
Right on. First, again, grateful to be here. Thank you, Dr. Ben. Greetings, community. My name is, again, Dr. Marcus Adeshima Penn, native of San Francisco, live in Oakland now, so all about the Bay here. And I represent an organization, actually my wife and I, of Finding Your Well, again, based in Oakland, consulting, retreats, organizational, individual, and community, and also faculty at Samuel Merritt University here in Oakland too. So when I hear urban wellness advocacy, advocacy is a big part of just my life and really just how I love to move forward in community, and also to empower and invite communities to do different things. And so I really see that sense of advocacy really being a place of empowerment, and with it being in urban spaces, pretty much the city, and doesn't have to mean San Francisco. It's in the Bay. We say that a lot, of course, but wherever folks are, again, wherever your listeners are and viewers are, again, within many city and residential areas, but really just inviting a sense of individual empowerment, community empowerment. And so again, before any actions, before any strategies, there has to be a sense of a feeling of like, okay, we need to do something, and then feel the energy to do it. Know you need to do it, but feel the energy to do it, and feel the collective and solidarity to do things. So when I hear urban wellness advocacy, that's what comes up inside of me. So happy to be a dialogue with you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, that's amazing. And just to give a little background on me, I'm a chiropractor practicing in downtown Oakland, same spot for the last 11 years. One of my gifts is just being a strategist, a creative person who observes patterns within my community and is able to just extract out like what the root cause of those patterns are. And so I'm hoping that we can go deeper into maybe just what patterns you've observed that you've chosen to address, right? Because we only have so much capacity in our lives to address maybe 1, 2, 3 issues. I'm curious, you and your wife, you said run a practice essentially of supporting individuals and communities and organizations. What's at the heart of that? I'm curious of like what, let's just say, is interfering with those groups of expressing their potential or expressing their full potential in what it is that they're doing, and like how are you removing that interference so that they can tune in and be attuned to their potential?
Sure. So first, is hearing you speak of what patterns have I seen, have we, my wife and I, seen. One of the big things, and it's also just kind of harkening a lot of the work that my wife has done in the mental health arena, and that we both have done, but largely her as well. And a lot of it has to do with removal of stigma of individuals being on a mental wellness journey. And I call it mental wellness because mental illness has way too much stigma. So mental wellness journey. And so, yeah, so removing stigma, and there is stigma, so seeing patterns of stigma and hiding, whether a part of families, family histories, or just one's individual experience. And so I think having it more in open conversation, and also just a part of folks just owning their journey. I mean, I know I have definitely gone through a depressive journey before, through, definitely medical school, post-medical school, and just life. So there's more than enough stuff to be depressed about if watching news or reading news. Um, so, and just being a black male in the United States, if not the world. So it's more than enough that really has definitely, impacted my mental wellness journey. So I think just having individuals uh, uh, be more open to speaking to their mental wellness journey, and communities, and knowing that so many behaviors that are out picturings of hiding or again stigmatizing so much around mental health, mental wellness, um, are so many are leading to so many chronic health challenges, and also that heighten a lot of the health disparities that are in the communities too. So I think a lot of it comes with how communities and how individuals hold mental wellness. And so, what are some of the things that we have done to help ameliorate and support mental wellness journey of many individuals? Um, and so, one of the things is actually a concept that I developed that largely came during the beginning days of the pandemic. Again, there's a whole lot of different creativity that we had to think of, still wanting to tend to the community, knowing it's a little more remote as we are right now, but still wanting to make sure that there's impact. And so there was a tool that I created, and I simply call it the CARE model, and CARE being an acronym, CARE. And so the first part of that is the C is compassion, and starting internally and then externally. So how do we hold ourselves in compassion? How do we hold ourselves individually in compassion, given whatever journey that we're in, whatever traumas, whatever hurts we have? And then after that, how within that, within acknowledging any hurts, pain, trauma, is the A is how do we advocate? How does one advocate for themselves, given the maybe pains or hurts that they've had or their journey, and from that advocacy, a little deeper is where is one feeling a sense of responsibility for their health, mental, physical, emotional health, and then all that together is how does one move into a space of empowerment? And so that is how we care for ourselves, care for our communities. And so those are the questions: compassion, advocacy, responsibility, empowerment. And I think that's a big place, or those are definitely places where one can start to delve more into solutions for communities and health.
Yeah, no, I think that could be the sort of structure for the rest of this conversation, actually,
Mhm.
is just exploring each of those. I'll throw out one that I created as an acronym is keep
Love
it
it.
real with yourself, keep it real with your health. And
Mm-hmm.
real is acronym for take responsibility for your health and yourself. Focus on the essentials, whatever those essentials are to you. Uh, A is trusting in your ability to
Mm-hmm.
to make the change, to make the shift, and then the L is all about liberation and finding freedom within the recognition that you can take responsibility, focus on the essentials, that you have the ability to do so, and that you'll be liberated if you do. I'm curious though, like as we go to compassion, compassion's a big word, um, and taking responsibility is a big word, a big concept. But I guess I'm just curious, like from your vantage point, besides your organization, you and your wife, who are some other people in the community that have a similar initiative? And has there been any constructive or collaborative dialogue yet, just before we get into the meat and potatoes of like the solutions that you and I come up with? I'm just curious of like what your observation has been of like all of these sort of overlapping groups of organizations and people that have shared interests. They want to support others, they want to support the community, but there's no real structure or formal way of doing so together. I'm just curious what your thoughts are on that.
For sure. Think about some past organizations that I past worked with that are still viable entities, live entities, and whom I work with currently. So previously, um, one organization that I know is doing a lot of great work in the community, particularly in San Francisco, and largely within the BIPOC, Black, Indigenous, People of Color community, is Rafiki Coalition for Health and Wellness, and so previously worked there as a health manager, programs manager, And so what I know that that they've done is they have programs that are very culturally specific to communities, and also how they also highlight and provide many platforms for caring for mental wellness. They are very open into having communities embrace a lot of complementary alternative medicine, so massage, acupuncture, chiropractic as well, and so again, urban communities that wouldn't otherwise really have that exposure, and I know I believe that they offer these free to the community. They grants or whatnot. I'm sure they get their funding, and so that's one that's viable, and that's very structured and regular and known and in the community. And another that's connected to the organization I'm with, again, San Merritt University. We have a Center for Community Engagement, and within that Center for Community Engagement is an organization that's actually been around for a while, and it's under the auspices of this Center for Community Engagement, and it's called the Ethnic Health Institute. And so what they do very much is partner with a lot of health advocacy organizations around the whole Bay Area. One of the things that happened a few months ago is something called Hypertension Sunday, that connects a lot of African American and of color churches, and they have these screenings. And so in addition to checking for blood pressure, I know previously I've been involved with them where I've introduced stress reduction techniques, and they check for diabetes, have conversations, some have workshops, and so many of these institutions have a lot of different health ministries, and so again, that being a very structured space of mobilization, solidarity, and activation of the community. So those are definitely pretty major. And then also another organization, or another gathering of individuals, is something called the Ma'afa, and based in San Francisco. And so it is a collection of individuals of African descent gather in commemoration of the ancestors that were part of the enslavement of African Americans that have come to this country. And in that is ritual of honoring how our ancestors have imparted strength in us and in our communities, despite 400 years of so much systemic, if not racism, oppression, so many things. But having this commemoration and collection of individuals coming together is a very empowering exercise, a very empowering practice, and that helps to instill us to look at our health differently, look at how we unify with each other, and actually help to reduce the differences and again, stigma in whether it's, again, mental health, all the areas where there's a lot of stigma of the differences of a lot of communities of color, and also within the communities of color. This is a powerful gathering for individuals to realize, okay, let's get together and see how we can change things as we look forward. So those are some that come to mind.
No, I think it's really important that you bring up organizations that are working with the churches, because if we're being honest, within an urban setting, what is it that connects us together? A lot of the times it's the sub-communities. We could talk about the religious or spiritual communities. We could talk about sports. We could talk about our kids. And the communities that they bring us into through the school systems. I'm just curious, when you are working with individuals, what have you observed to be like the shift that might take place? Or let's just say, all right, so the background on this question is really like direct access and trying to increase access to communities who, like you said, the stigma might be preventing them from even being interested in accessing these services, because there's something about them going to a service like a mental health support system or support person, that if somebody else that they know found out about it, they might lose respect, or if somebody else found out about it, they might be embarrassed, or whatever it is, it prevents them from acting. But let's just say they take the step, they trust in the process, and they make that connection to a workshop that you're facilitating or to an individual. Where are we meeting them at, and where are we trying to bring them to within, say, one interaction or 5 interactions spread out over a couple of weeks or a couple of months? What are some of the, I guess, transformations that we would aim to achieve, and like how do we meet them where they're at? Like, I'm just curious what that all looks like, and is it on an individual level, is it on a group level? What works best? What are the best practices that you've observed to really help people kind of shed this sort of inhibition that they have from just being open-minded?
For sure. One of the things that I've learned doing a lot of work in the community is really being as vulnerable and transparent as possible. Particularly as we're speaking to whether it's healthcare or wellness care, so much is individuals given or communities given a decree. This is what you're supposed to do, what you're supposed to do. But I think adding to that, particularly for leaders in these spaces, to be transparent, where I've used these type of services, where the advocates are saying I've used these services. I know that there's stigma around it, or I know it's not common for folks to do, but to have that transparency is one, I think, powerful practice. And I think also, as you spoke to access, where again, low to no cost definitely helps. And when I spoke about, Rafiki Coalition for Health and Wellness, again, there's no cost for these services. And I know that there are many others that are like that. That is a big process. A big aspect for supporting, access, supporting exposure, and supporting individuals saying, hey, maybe I can take a look at that. Because when you take, largely the money factor out, then there can be that openness. And I think too, I spoke about the kind of solidarity and mobilization of communities when individuals see individuals who look like them or are from their community who are taking part in these services that we're speaking about, and they hear largely word of mouth in community, particularly in communities of color. That goes a long way. I heard so-and-so went to and they had a good experience. I heard so-and-so went to get chiropractic care, and their chiropractors, their first time was really nice, and actually was in there a part of their community. And so things like that, I think, really meet the one-to-one, as you spoke to, but also meet the community to community aspect. And and that I think is a really big aspect. And there are also just fun incentives. There can be tying in forming creative partnerships, I think, are a big aspect. And again, as I'm a part of a health science institution, when big institutions do go in the community and really mean the connections that they make, and again, we have one outlet of our Ethnic Health Institute, that matters, and I've heard from so much of the community work that I've done, even when I previously was working at UC San Francisco, that communities want the partnerships, but they want them to be long-lasting partnerships, not just transactional partnerships. Going in, many times our big ivory tower institutions are going in, doing research, they get it, and then they're out, and then they're gone. And communities are like, what the heck? You know what I'm saying? Like, okay, did you really mean to help, or were you just trying to get data? So I think that's a big thing. Authenticity, integrity, even if there are larger institutions that are connecting in the community, folks know when folks are real and not real. And so I think a whole lot more so now. And so that is a big aspect that can keep the connection strong and make sure that that the community gets what they need.
I'm curious, if we were training urban wellness advocates who were going to go out to the communities that they're from and speak in a familiar language and support people in the sort of mental health practices that you've created structure for, that allow somebody to really move through a series of practices or exercises or reflections that help them arrive at maybe a more self-empowered place or a more self-aware place. Whatever it is, it strengthens them within. It builds resilience within their mind. I'm curious, what are some of the educational sort of lessons that we should be training these urban wellness advocates who are going to go out and do direct access care in their communities through the mental health lens, specifically the type of work that you do? What do you think are maybe the core 5 things that we want them to communicate with the people that they're assigned to or that they make these creative partnerships with?
Right on. One thing just kind of on the surface, as we both shared, sharing the kind of thought philosophy of, again, real and care. So we can even say real care, all those aspects, responsibility, and emphasizing emphasis of what's important, and making sure that all that care is also moving folks to a space of, again, to that space of liberation. So, compassion, advocacy, responsibility, empowerment, all of that. So initially instilling with them a thought framework. And within that, ideally in the training, making sure that these advocates have embodied it themselves, within their own life practice. And so that's one of the things that I learned as I kind of hold that balance of Western medicine and practice and Eastern medicine and practice, which tends to be much more holistic, in that a lot more of the Eastern practices are ones that, and when they're shared, they've been done by the person who's advocating or teaching them. Yoga is learned by the yoga practitioner. Tai Chi is learned by the practitioner, and if not, chiropractor is done by the practitioner as well. A little different than Western practice. Not every, I am a doctor, but I'm not practicing now, but not every doctor has taken every medication that's been prescribed. So that's a big difference. So back to the advocates, when they can share, this has worked for me. I think that is one of the most single-handed, powerful tools for advocacy, self-advocacy, and self testimony. I think that's what I'm trying to say. Self-testimony is a huge tool. And again, as I very much am proud of my my African-American heritage, that I know that in communities of color, that personal testimony of I have done this has worked for me, goes so far, and just so many communities do that. And so that would be one piece, and I think too, drawing the practical correlations of how certain behaviors, how certain behaviors lead to unhealthy behaviors, and at the same time, how certain behaviors can lead to healthy behaviors. So just drawing those correlations, and again, the advocates to understand that, perhaps to see that within their own lives, and then to share. And as they're going to the communities, like we see, saying, I've gone through these same things. I know I came up in this neighborhood where the pull to go in that direction, which may not be as healthy, is so strong. And so that's why I'm here to come in the community and be here in this place to help at least steer folks in another direction. So again, testimony is huge. Having thought philosophy is very big, and connecting to the community that they've come from is, I think, a huge aspect, are huge aspects.
Yeah, we have to start here with the mind, because your beliefs dictate your behaviors. And if we're trying to really shift and change lives to move people in a path that's more aligned with who they are, not trying to change them to think who we think they should be, but just trying to support them to find themselves in this journey we call life. I think having these constructive dialogues from a person that speaks like them, that maybe they know this person's mother or father. My vision is really, I don't know if you remember the movie Friday in the 90s. I might have already shared this with you on a previous conversation, but back in the day, this movie came out, and there was an individual named Big Worm driving through the neighborhood, distributing resources through an ice cream truck. Mm-hmm. And this ice cream truck concept still to this day has been time tested. It's still going through our neighborhoods with that same familiar song. And I just think we need to be a little more innovative, but also success leaves clues. And if we look at the ice cream truck's impact on how people feel, how people think, if we could create something like an Amazon truck or like one of these food trucks that's equipped with individuals who are these urban wellness advocates who can go to the communities that they're from. That's the prerequisite. You got to be from the community, and you have to have gone through the training that you and I are describing, like what would be in that training, so that they could go out and make a meaningful difference in their community, support people, maybe provide and distribute fresh fruits and vegetables or clean water, and pull up with some different type of music, maybe some jazz or some R&B or some hip hop or some reggae in front of a liquor store, and stand right in front of that liquor store and be like, you're poisoning our community. We're going to stand here and not be mad at you, but we're going to promote health and wellness practices louder than you are, because let's be honest, it's an extremely loud message coming from these liquor stores, convenience stores. I mean, they're lit up bright like a Christmas tree at nighttime, and there's really nothing else open in the community except for that. And we know there's nothing in there that's teaching them how to have stronger mindsets, more resilience in like trusting in themselves and their abilities. So if we could somehow not put the convenience stores down, but look at them as allies, as places that we need to somehow partner with our initiative of being urban wellness advocacy sort of distributors, and have them help us. You know, one of the things I love to think about is the nutritional facts and all the different things in those stores, and how we can just kind of pull up with some nicks and dimes of fruits and vegetables and greens and distribute those. And you know, I know you talked about data before and how people are always skeptical with that. Maybe data is not something that we need to collect, but maybe like qualitative data, like were you eating fruits and vegetables before we met you? Okay, 6 months later, are you eating fruits and vegetables? Or 6 weeks later, are you eating fruits and vegetables because we actually distributed them and brought them to you? Right. I just think, what do you think about that sort of a vision for urban wellness advocacy in every neighborhood, to have their own sort of teams of people that are employed? You know, maybe it starts as a summer internship, maybe it grows to a full-time thing.
I think that's very powerful, you know, and it's tapping into what is where there's most receptivity. And also, as I was hearing you speak, it's so important to have the proper partnerships, and even renewed partnerships, you know. And as you know, we were speaking about a lot of the liquor stores, and you know, their businesses, they're making money just in the sense of that. And it's like, okay, so they're not necessarily going anywhere, so how can we partner with them, you know? And I love that. I really love that. And what I also was thinking too is I love the concept of kind of reframing the ice cream truck, if not the food truck idea concept, where you know, there could be distribution of you know, fresh produce, you know, farmers market produce. So, and that definitely could be the model. And also loving how the you know, health education, you know, health empowerment education, and just nuggets of again, shifting philosophy. I really love that. And that's, I think, where yeah, it's like it's not so much, as we always say, not about reinventing the wheel, but being creative, you know, with the wheels that are out there, you know. And that's what I'm hearing, you know, you speak to. And so much, there's so much that goes in community buy-in, and folks owning what they're doing, owning what they're saying, and owning this sense of their stake in the community, you know, in their community and in the overall community. And you know, and as that grows more and more, then that invites more individuals to be a part of it. And yeah, and that grows in the solidarity, and that, you know, raises the community up, yeah, collectively. And I see that. I really like that.
And if I was to kind of just turn it over to you to kind of maybe share something that's been coming up for you, any creative solutions you've come up with, or maybe you want to sort of build on top of the framework that I was thinking of, just being direct access, or empowering and training people from these communities that are low access to no access in regards to the essentials, like how to have a healthy mindset, how to be self-empowered, how to access 5 fruits and vegetables a day or clean, pure water. I'm just curious, like if you've been ruminating, I'm sure you have for years, on what is the most effective strategy or solution that you can think of, or what is the most important skill that you can think of that we can really kind of just have permeate through these communities and through the culture at large?
For sure. A lot of the work that I do is in the realm of restorative practice work. And so that the restoration in the sense of restorative is all about relationships. And so in our conversation here, I think of relationships clearly to community, relationships to oneself, and relationships to each other. So that interpersonal, personal, and community. And so I would something that I've had in my mind is similar to you is creating restorative specialists, and so helping to restore these relationships, to the community and all the areas that we've been speaking to, and again bringing thought, philosophy, giving again all the personal testimony, so all the things we've spoken to. So that's definitely one, and I think two. One of the things that I know has been a vision of my wife's too is creating more sacred spaces for folks to just kind of slow down. There's more than a fast-paced work, just and trauma that's out in the community that tends to have us just move faster and faster. So creating more spaces that folks can slow down in safety, in solidarity, and in again a sense of space of sacredness. And also in ritual. I'm personally someone that really is big in the potency of what ritual can be in the sense of health. I mean, even just doing something regular, whether someone's jogging or working out, that is actually a ritual. It's a ritualistic practice. So honoring that, bringing that aspect is something that I really, want folks to be more a part of. And I think another aspect. And this is something that is going a little more macro. And again, another partnership that my wife and I have is having individuals creating spaces of creating transformative experiences. We do a lot of international travel, so a lot of these transformative experiences can also expand folks' minds to how other countries are tending to mental health, tending to again community health, and advocacy. And so one of the things that we actually have or still have are inviting folks for is transformative travel to Rwanda. And when we think about Rwanda, again, unfortunately, the thought is many times about genocide. That did take place in the 90s. And my wife and I, and actually our son, had gone over there 2 years ago and got to speak with, mental health care professionals, and also another, I think it's called Prison Rwanda Fellowship, where those who were the perpetrators of much of those heinous crimes were in a restorative process, and just seeing like, how did that go? And so there was so much that we learned from them as well. So one of the tools is bringing individuals to experience those tools and bringing those tools back, to our communities, and seeing how we can translate it. Again, because it's like, if there can be a community that is healed from a genocide within 30 years, then surely there are some tenets that we can bring back to all of our communities. However, in the United States, in the Bay Area, if not other aspects of the world. So those are some of the things that we're working on. It's again the micro and the macro, and that's kind of how we have to think. Global and local as well is really, really huge to do.
Yeah, I'm curious if you have any questions that you want to toss back towards me, or, because I could go off and talk about like community wellness index research that measured the factors of a healthy community. And one of those being like proximity to nature or amount of spaces that you can take refuge and relax in. I think that's a big one. And, accessibility to essential resources like water and food. But hearing you talk and describe what you're up to with the restorative specialist training program that maybe you'll release, and I'm just curious, like, what's coming up for you in this conversation. Just we're 35 minutes in.
Gotcha.
We've been kind of ruminating on a number of different concepts. If we were to bring this to a head, I guess I'm curious, what's coming up for you at the moment right now, as far as where do we go from here? We have this awareness, we have this experience that we've gotten to receive as humans from these neighborhoods, and obviously we've become professionals and we still care about these neighborhoods, so we haven't forgotten about them, and we've gone back into the neighborhoods and tried to apply the practices and expertise that we've been able to develop within ourselves to help as many people as possible. But I'm just curious, like, what needs to happen, I guess, in order to translate this from, like, dialogue to action. Like, if I'm saying that we need to have more conversations like this, and that we need to act on these conversations, or like what comes to you, I guess. I'm just curious where you're at right now.
I think just the first question that comes to mind here, and then just for the work that you've done, is where have you seen the most receptivity, to this work, to the communities that are desiring to be these urban wellness advocates, to receive the work from these urban wellness advocates. So I'm curious as to where you've seen the most receptivity.
Well, I would say every experience I've had has shown me time after time that whether I'm trying to do a workshop with transitional age youth on holistic health practices, they're super receptive, even if a lot of the concepts are somewhat new or somewhat, I guess you could say esoteric and maybe unfamiliar. They're still really receptive. And then me actually doing direct access care out in the community at homeless encampments, or speaking at gun violence awareness events in the communities, everybody's receptive. I don't think that the receptivity is necessarily the issue, because when I speak on a level playing field. I don't speak as if I'm above anybody. I speak as though I'm just relating, and I'm no smarter or better or anything than you are. I'm just trying to make sense of this world we live in and share strategies that have worked, from my training and also from my experience in life. But I think that it's more about, like, compounding the efforts and connecting, building bridges between the organizations. One thing that I keep observing in the professional world is we have nonprofit organizations and also for-profit entities and even schools and institutions that are all doing incredible work, but they're all doing it, like, on their own, in their own silo, and they're not really leveraging one person's efforts. I kind of metaphor it to, like, baking a cake. Okay, we got 20 ingredients to bake this beautiful cake. Why are we only using like 2 or 3 ingredients? Or we're not even trying to bake a cake, because we don't realize how everybody's efforts, every institution or individual or organization's efforts matter towards this bigger picture of, like, a network of organizations that are all working together on this topic or this topic or this topic, or these needs of the community, and how can we bring them all together into a structure that's, like, interconnected and really in alignment with the principles of nature and the universe. I'm just, like, really always amazed at how people with expanded consciousness are not able to see the importance of connecting their organization to another organization to another organization, maybe in a way that's not, like, so energy demanding, but that's kind of what inspires me, and that's, like, what has really got me excited to have these types of conversations moving forward, is, like, I really want to see us come together as a community, for lack of better words, of organizations and people, and, with all different goals and initiatives, but all really, like, closely similar in nature, if that makes sense.
Indeed. You speak to one of the one of the challenges of some of the aspects of just this country, our country, and where, its inception largely was about individualistic, kind of that pursuit of one's individual happiness, all those things that are classic and missaid. And so I think that translates, unfortunately, many times into organizations that, again, are doing great work, but it's still that we're doing it. and so again, it takes a lot of the shift of philosophy, of ideology, of more collectivism, communalism, in that sense, and again, not only the conversations here, but taking those steps. And so, speaking to more leadership, where it's like, okay, so how to pool resources, even knowing that there are knowing that folks have to go for many times grants or whatnot. It's like, partnering, and that's what I've learned. Actually, I've done a lot of grant reviews and federal grant reviews, where always there's extra more points when that are given, when it's like these collaborations are already happening to do this work for this grant. And so, I think the more that folks realize that, again, as we're speaking to, it's more about pooling efforts, and again, as we said, not having to reinvent the wheel. But what that does is that amplifies the effectiveness, amplifies the exposure of so many of these tools, and so I think more of the invitation for organizations, entities to realize that it is, we are more, we're stronger. What do we say? Strength in numbers. That's what I'm trying to say. Ode to our warriors, and hopefully the retooling next year. But it is more powerful when there is that strength in numbers and strength in concept, and then that can be strength in resources, and pooled resources. So I see that. I definitely see that, and I think the more we conversations, yes, that we're having like these, and that you've been having, amplify that voice and inspires folks to amplify within their respective arenas. So with all of the guests that you're have had and are going to have, that's that igniting flame, that has it go to their respective areas of influence, and can have us pool more of our resources together. Really,
yeah, for sure. I appreciate you. I appreciate you just walking this path with me. I think that it's a path less traveled, shall we say. It's not really it's not really clear on how you get to where you and I are, of being in our professions for many years and still being really deeply entrenched in how do we build a better community structure so that we can function better as a community. Like, the more the macro, I think, is just lacking, as far as like, how can you develop yourself as a teenager into a person who has the ability to make an impact in your community, to influence other people in a positive way, and to be a role model for the kids. The more teenagers that we can challenge early on and really be like, hey, this is a really big challenge we're giving you, but we know that you're capable of it. Otherwise, we wouldn't even be thinking about it as being a possibility. But I think that creative solutions that are given to teenagers and say, hey, you go figure this out, I think we're going to get somewhere. So I thank you for coming on here. And obviously my overarching goal with these conversations is to build a network of organizations that are doing work that's aligned behind, like, how do we strengthen the wellness of our urban communities, what types of services are being offered, what types of resources, but also, like, if there's opportunity for collaboration and in, say, empowering youth or other people that are maybe adult level or whatever, to help others in the community. I think that we need to like speak into existence more of what we want, as opposed to like just say, oh, this is not what we want, this system is broken, and America has been divided forever, and our history has led us here, and it will continue on. And maybe all of that is true. And like, what is the narrative that we want to perpetuate and try and like make, I guess, the louder narrative, like,
Mhm.
the loudest voice wins.
For sure, for sure. And I appreciate how you spoke of elevating our youth and if not activating our youth in that aspect. That's one thing. We're in some aspects we're some OGs in the game. Where so many of the youth now, whether I'm thinking about like social media and there's probably a whole other conversation we could have in relation to social media, but I want to hone on how it can be used to mobilize. It can be used to mobilize healthily. It can be. And the youth just have that down. They can think of the immediate hashtag to support urban wellness advocacy or restorative specialists or finding a well, all those things. But I it's and I think with a lot of social media, there's that the creativity is much more within our younger generation, and I think it's imperative that we partner and collaborate, with a lot of that youthful creativity, and use the modes, the modalities that are available for us right now, because I so see how. With certain campaigns and also these challenges, there's always so many challenges that are on our social media, and so harnessing those tools to having a green drink challenge, having a just go into your community and advocate on mental health, anti-stigma, just things like that, just having those channels. And the youth are so much more vocal and so much more empowered in their voice. And as social media has very much helped to amplify, it's like, let's use that. And I've in a lot of the kind of the intergenerational just groups that I'm a part of, I always think to see how we can merge and collaborate in these efforts, because there's so much creativity in how to get message out and to have it sustainable, that we can employ.
As we segue to the end of this conversation, I'm wondering if you could share with me your awareness, your application of using artificial intelligence tools in any way, shape, or form in the work that you're doing, or how you've observed the power of it, or if you're kind of ignoring it on purpose and purposefully. I'm just curious where you're at with it, because for just speaking from my experience, I like to tell people I've gotten about 10 years worth of work done in the last 6 weeks with just how much can be created and in the way that it can be created. The reason I even got to that metaphor of baking a cake is
Hmm.
because I use now like 17 different AI tools to do maybe a blog post or to
Hmm.
start a website or to create an understanding of a concept for a group of people in a specific way that I want it to be packaged. I'm just curious where you're at with the AI these days.
For sure. I know it's definitely a hot topic, for sure, and I've heard so many different sides. I tend to focus more on how it can help elevate community, help elevate not just community but humanity. And so I'm aware of what, like, kind of on the lower end or scale of things, of thinking about the meditation apps, Insight Timer, Insight Meditation, Calm app, Headspace, and how they have, I think, certain chat bots, that may be a part of them. And also, I know that there is AI for mental health support. There have been AI, again, chatbots, but for mental health. It may not be a person, but they've worked algorithms that can provide reassurance and asking helpful and introspective questions, and so those I definitely know are out there as well. I'm also very much aware of the chat GPTs. I know Google's working on, what I think Google has Bard. And so I know that the Google Assistants, the the Siris, the Bings are advancing. And so it's like, okay, if if we can have a digital voice be help to be that amplified voice for what we're particularly wanting to happen, then hey, that's using technology in its best way forward. Um, and also, as you said, that can much more of these AI these days can create things, can write for you, and folks in I'm chuckling because I think about that delicate area for our kids in school where it's like, don't have ChatGPT write your term papers.
I was gonna say my premise on ChatGPT right now, with just my understanding of it, is that it needs to be like, just like you have an adult monitoring feature on certain technological pieces of equipment, the iPad, the computer, you need to have some features built into ChatGPT where it's like, hey, if students below the age of, or below the grade of 12th grade, or using 12th grade and below, like, they can't really use ChatGPT for their work in any way, shape, or form. But I think that they can use it. They can be given a certain amount of credits or prompts for certain applications of it. I think it could be very valuable. You're right, though. Like, I'm all about how can it amplify the positivity of what's going on in the world, whereas the majority of people are all about how it's going to negatively impact us. I'm blown away right now. And so, like, because there's been so much constructive dialogue in this 51-minute conversation, I just wanted to bring AI into it, because in my mind now, it's like an essential component to any movement wanting to really achieve or reach their potential. It's just insane right now, like how we could take this conversation and write a book or write a manual in an hour or two. Obviously, we're gonna have to edit it and revise it, but I've just, anyway, I appreciate you, and I want to value your time. So thank you, Dr. Penn, for just taking some time to kick it with me on the Urban Wellness Advocacy podcast. And I think we've planted a lot of seeds in the minds of the people that are listening to us. If anybody wants to connect, there will be ways to do so. And let's just carry on the dialogue. Let's keep this conversation flowing.
Absolutely. And again, if our conversation has inspired anybody, please let that inspiration move forward. And if anyone would like to, reach out to me, I'm on Facebook, Marcus Adeshima Penn. Also, same handle on Instagram. Check the website, findingyourwell.com, and also r-evolution.life. So definitely, let's keep the conversation live, and let's keep our lives elevated. Looking forward.